Today, I'd like to talk to you about Overlord Gameworks, and it's going to be pretty close to the heart. Originally, the name was intended as a jab at myself for never having really completed a project. In fact, I had called it Unlimited Nanny Works before it was seriously planned as a company, and I am a pretty big fan of Type Moonworks and had the chance to enjoy the Fate Stay Night visual novel. So the joke here is that I had this massive pile of notes, binders, text documents, barely touched and almost completed RPG Maker games, and a slurry of other various things that only surrounded me and grew and grew. I had all of these neat ideas and never really did much with them. So originally, it was honestly a cursed name, an endless machine of ideas that will never reach completion. It was intended to be that way to amuse myself, but it wound up being extremely true for many years. Well, at the very least, my friends and I got to enjoy these games, and we inspired each other to make and play things all the time. But there was this dream that we had buried somewhere in there to share these ideas with others. Life is pretty hard when you're a teenager going through school trying to find your way. Something about the companionship and genuinely good time brought by pen and paper games made everything so much better. Back in high school, I once described pen and paper games to someone as sorcery. Running a game is like creating a world and inviting those you care about to take a step inside it with you. That ideal was never really lost to me. I believe in the power of that ability, and I believe that a lot of my closest friends are probably still connected to me because of that. Years later, the closest people to me tend to be the ones that I've shaken some dice with at some point in time. It was a way for us to channel our creativity, stand together in hard times, and express ourselves as we wished. Someone on the outside probably saw just a bunch of nerds playing card games and rolling dice under a set of stairs, but to me, it was love. In 2017, I had some spark of creativity and I told myself, today's the day. We end the curse and we make it into a seed. We're gonna sow hope from despair. Let's write a pen and paper game manual. Let's take a step and get that momentum going. I officially opened Overlord Gameworks and published a manual that I was very proud of at the time. Now, years later, I look back at it and I'm like, man, the structure in this, the information, it's lacking in so many things. I could have done so much better. But still, I did it. It was here, in my hands. The curse was broken. Unfortunately, not long after that, one of my closest friends had been met with a horrible accident, and he lost his life after a hard struggle and a brief glimmer of hope. He and I had been working on Rainbow Ocean together, my biggest and most loved project. He composed the song you hear in the background based off of some of my mumbling and just general description of what I would like to hear in the song. With his passing, I felt a new, profound barrier appear before me. It still sits there, slowing my keystrokes as I type, giving me doubt when I read what I write. A long time ago, I used to swap bullies off this guy. Once I tore both of my Achilles tendons jumping behind a guy who had lifted him in the air by the neck. Hurts like hell, but I bluffed through it, and these kind of things were pretty common actually. In my darkest of times, he is the one who told me with all sincerity that I inspired him, and that he saw me as some legitimately heroic person. He called me a hero. As someone who was definitely compensating for not being able to protect people in the past, this was something I would never forget. He inspired me to become a better person. I didn't want him to look at me one day and be like, hey, why aren't you a good guy anymore? So, here I am, trying to write stories about heroes and games that help you play as one, and my hands just don't want to move. I had to wait again, take time to heal through the grief and mend. I admitted defeat, and I let my heart rest for a while. And here we are, all the way in 2022. I'm sitting here sifting through a pile of notes, the ones I managed to keep hold of that weren't lost through time anyway. They're all a minefield of happy, distant memories that I never really forgot. Though some of them I look at and I'm like, hey, was this Sari who drew this? And then the timeline doesn't match up and I'm like, hey, who the heck drew this? Drawings from a lot of people I love are scattered all through these pages, and after a decade, a lot of the information has begun to fade. It's February 20th, 2022. I'm sitting here at 4 in the morning, sifting through ancient pieces of paper with fading text. Yeesh, some of these from middle school and high school are completely unintelligible. What kind of crazy code did I write in? I sure know that I typed with every word capitalized for some reason. Who knows why I thought that was a good idea. I might have been doing that because I think in the original script for Rainbow Ocean in RPG Maker 2003, the notes were intended to be that way to be more legible in the game. Like something about the font made it that way. But I was copying and pasting a lot of lines that I was typing in class, so the end result is that the basic notes for Rainbow Ocean are just this cesspool of really poorly written sentences. And boy, do I kind of regret that. Man, my mousepad sure is dirty. Worn with age and tarnished. Overlord Gameworks, it says, dotted with many game and story concepts that I plan to work on in that very year of 2017. Rainbow Ocean, the story of a god split among men who came to be known as Seekers. Heaven Unknown, a bizarre game about life being the processing ground for souls and the afterlife being the true life. Nanny's Zany Adventure. Oh boy, this thing here started off as a joke created in RPG Maker 2000 and remade for 2003 and XP and VX, and I didn't finish any of them. Alright, so this game here was this really ridiculous thing where you were a slave in a crystal ball factory. You polished crystal balls for a living. You kept a roof over your head, substandard food, and one day your shipment gets stolen, so you escape into the wild to survive. Your enemies were classic things like Black Belt Nun, who asked you for money for thirsty cacti worldwide, and if you gave too little or too much, she kicked your ass. Immobile thorny bushes you could just walk away from, but it seems like you might get something from, so you're encouraged to punch it with your bare fists and damage yourself. And of course, who could forget your own shadow? That thing was always around. There was also this cave that had a bumpy floor and tiles that slowly wore you down, and they wouldn't kill you, but they'd wear you down slowly, and you'd randomly get into a fight with a slight breeze, which would show up, deal exactly 1 damage, and then run away. The prize for this was shoes, so that you could avoid it in the future. Death Machine, Clockwork Graveyard, all sorts of concepts. They sit here, and they stare me in the face every day when I'm sitting at this computer. With any luck and a bit of hope and courage, I can take some paddles to the Gameworks and give it the jolt it needs. There's a dream to achieve here and people to honor in the process. These notes are here, and they're just so much more than a seed. They're hope, they're a dream, and hopefully they'll become a legacy for our children. Hopefully, I can pass on our love and unity to someone else who needs it. And, of course, people just looking for a dice game. That's all we thought we were in for at the time too, you know. So, there you have it. That's the long version of what we do here. We kindle the flame of an old dream and hope to one day light up the sky. Our mission is to share sorcery in the form of tabletop RPGs, board games, card games, video games, novels, and more. I was feeling weird and sentimental today, so I leave here this weird and sentimental testament. Thank you to everyone who has stayed with us on this journey. Sometimes a little company in the rain is everything.